Welcome back to BaldHeaded Metal, guys, and my name is Joseph, and today I'm doing another review for the album from Immolation, the album Acts of God. And I have to say, for those who don't know this channel, I'm a big fan of metal, but especially the extreme side of metal. And starting this channel, it helped me really discover a lot of bands that kind of I had to look at myself of, how dare you have never heard of these bands? What is wrong with you? And there was bands like Bellacore or Persephone, or especially Asphyx, which I freaking loved and went through the whole discography. Just completely resonated with me, gave me those bolt thrower feels when I was listening to them. Well, it looks like I'll be adding several bands to this list, one of which is Immolation, because Acts of God is a killer fucking album. From beginning to the end, I was totally hooked and just enjoyed everything that I heard. Those who are uninitiated, they hail from upstate New York, or more specifically Yonkers, and they're one of the leaders in the New York death metal scene and have been around since 1991. Actually, it's their 11th album that's coming out this Friday. And I gotta say, for some reason, I just never gotten around. I've always heard the name, I've never gotten around to listening to them, but I am a little bit partial to them because they're from New York, I'm from New York, so there's already a little liking to them, that's here. Especially we don't have a lot of metal bands with Anthrax, we got Overkill from New Jersey, we got Immolation. It's a handful of bands, there's not as much. I believe Suffocation's from New York as well. So it's just those group of people that you really cherish and love, that this is exploding in your city as well. And Immolation being one of them. And again, I've never listened to an album before. This is my first one jumping in, and it's great to know that I jumped in with an album that's really satisfying. Perhaps there's going to be older albums that are even better, or really show their catalog even more. But if this is any indication what the band's all about, holy shit, I think I'm in for a ride. And that's kind of what happened to me with Asphyx with their last album. It's an old school death metal album through and through, the likes of Suffocation, Cannibal Corpse, or something like Bolt Thrower, which I for some reason try to plug into every single video that I make, because it is my favorite death metal band of all time. Hasn't been decrowned yet. And starting actually with the killer cover. I thought the cover was really nice, kind of painting. I really loved it. I've also kind of mentioned that with another band this year was Spartan, which had a really nice cover as well. It seems to be a rare feat nowadays, right? Getting a really good cover for an album. And it has 13 tracks. I say 13 because it really has 15, but it has two kind of instrumental transitional songs, one intro and one at the end of the album. And it lasts slightly over 52 minutes. It's a dense album full of killer songs. The ones that stood out to me really just kind of grabbed my attention is Noose of Thorns, Blooded, Apostle. But really, I think every track has something to offer different in its music writing, in its style, in its mood. They tried different things with different songs, and I think I was not even bored for a single second. I was just enjoying it throughout. Actually, I did 2 listens back to back because I enjoyed it so much. The reason I think I like this album so much is it strikes a perfect balance between like a heavy, fast riffing we come to expect from a good death metal band, and those melodic sections, the slower section, atmospheric sections. They're really good at balancing the two in songs, so it always feels fresh, that it's not monotone or one note. There's things happening in their songwriting, and their pure aggression along with their production actually gives you the ability to hear kind of all the details while getting all the brutality. And it has that, to me, that slight nod to the old school productions of death metal records. It just gives that sound, it gives me the feeling like I'm listening to an album from 90s or 2000s. The best way I can describe it is, there are albums that I listen to now, they could be death metal or extreme metal albums, and they just sound a little bit overproduced, where everything's just crisp and clear, like every single cymbal detail and guitar riff. And in 2000s, especially 90s and 80s, of course, there was just something about the production that it had its faults and mistakes, and it wasn't perfect, and for some reason it just sounded really good. The one that I always thought about, that my brother and I, we both agree on, is Megadeth's Rust in Peace. Their original album, the way it was recorded, it just sounded so good. It had this energy to it. When they remastered it, I fucking hate the remaster of that album. And I can kind of come back to this album with the same thing. It's just the production just has something a little bit about it that I personally enjoy. Perhaps you guys will hear it as well, but it's something I wanted to point out that was important to me. I came in, again, relatively blinded to this band, only hearing one single, The Age of No Light, and I did a reaction on it and kind of, came away interested. I wasn't impressed by that point. I wasn't interested. But after that, I'm adding all the albums to my list. I need to go through this band. And I knew from the first couple of songs when I heard it on this album, I got something special on my hands. And that's a great feeling when you get that feeling that you just know you got a good album on your hands. Now you just can relax and listen and go through the whole thing. I've had kind of, you have experiences where there's an anticipation, oh my God, is it going to be good? And you listen to it and it fulfills that promise. And sometimes it doesn't, but there's almost a level of anxiety that you have, like, oh my God, please don't suck. This is my favorite band. Please don't suck. Literally 2 or 3 songs in, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm getting in. I know what I'm going to hear here. There's no way this is not going to be a good album. And it just kept kind of topping that feeling over and over for me personally, which I kind of came away with this more emotional feeling of why I like it so much. And all songs on this album are on the shorter side. And all of them pack a punch in their own way, leaving the catalog of songs. I think fans are going to be debating which one is the best one, and that's the best feeling. It's like, no, this is the best one. That was the best. It's a great feeling when you create such a dynamic and good album that you can't pick your favorite song. And it does have, like I mentioned, those 2 instrumentals serving as transitions. And there's something that veteran bands possess that new bands just don't have. And it's that certain heaviness, certain aggression and brutality that even some modern extreme metal bands just not able to fully capture. And I think it's the case with another album I'll be reviewing actually a little bit later on this week, is the Corpse Grinder project. It's true of both of these bands. There's just something about the veterans that are still doing it well that nobody can capture that sound. Bands now, they innovate or combine or fuse things and change things and progress music in different kinds of ways. But to capture that classic feeling of like, man, is this so good? It's like watching a good movie. When you watch Terminator or Rambo First Blood, you watch them, or the first Rocky, it's just, you can't replicate that feeling. You get it there, and that's all you get. And it's the same thing with Immolation. Because they've been around for so long, they know how to make that sound. It's because it's them. They're part of the guys who created death metal. And I think it's a special feeling getting that. So I can only imagine how fans of the band are going to react when they hear this album. I feel like you guys are just going to be super stoked and excited. I can't see this kind of not impressing you. I can perhaps see a newer fan of heavy metal or a newer fan of extreme metal finding it more old, where, again, when one person says old school, it's a good thing. When another one says like, it sucks, it's not like the modern bands when they fuse things. But since I kind of grew up with heavy metal, in the late 80s, into most of the 90s, of course, 2000s, and now, to me, it just has that special thing about it that I think people are going to be talking about all year. And in general, it's a good month for death metal overall. So I think it's just a happy time to be a metalhead. Guys, I would love to hear from you as well when you get to listen to this album this Friday, kind of your opinions as well. What did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? As an Immolation fan, how does it stand in their pantheon? I think by Friday, I'm probably going to listen to the whole discography, knowing me, because I get very obsessive and I want to listen to everything. And I'm going to try my hardest to actually try to interview somebody from Immolation and see, kind of, pick their brain about the album and perhaps about the band itself as well. So if you guys want to post questions, if it happens, post questions that you want me to ask them as well. I think it'd be cool. Guys, make sure to enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there. And most of all, keep it fucking metal.